that we need to take to make good of the promises that we have done. And as the President addressed us earlier, he emphasized the need for a step change and focus on practical actions, but also clear time frames on what needs to be done so that we can realize the 3 priorities that were communicated by the President of the 7th administration, which is inclusive, building an inclusive economy that creates jobs, eradicating poverty, and managing the high cost of living, and also building a capable state. We are also going to have the clusters, the various clusters, presenting their proposals in terms of what are the MTDP platforms, and depending on your need, we can also bring the cluster chairpersons to come and brief you about what they agreed and they are proposing from the clusters. But earlier, we also received a scene-setting report from the Minister of Finance and Treasury in terms of what is the economic outlook and the global trends, and what are the implications for the MTDP. We'll also receive from myself and the Statistician General what are the trends that will inform the government planning cycle as part of that work that we'll do. We'll also receive a report in terms of our work as we prepare to host the G20, not only about the logistics, but also the content of what the government of South Africa wants to pursue. You already all know the theme, but we are looking at what are those things that we want to achieve in terms of reform of global institutions, in particular the security system of the United Nations, but also global funding institutions. But we're also looking at how do we reform the funding institutions that are of South Africa, because we all know that the funding institutions of South Africa has not made an impact in funding the missing middle, which will be the teachers, your nurses, your soldiers, your police, but also funding the SMME. So we are looking at what are the reforms we need to bring there. Well, again, myself and Minister of Finance will then bring a table to the Cabinet, Lekgotla, the Operation Vulindlela Reforms Phase 2. Remember, it was launched as we began the 7th administration, and say what are the targets that we are prioritizing to make sure that those reforms make an impact. And high on that is the work that is being led by the Department of Employment and Labor on employment creation that is meaningful. And that is the Lekgotla in general, and I will take questions.
Thank you very much, Minister. Colleagues, in that order, as the Minister's indicated, we are pressed for time. There will be other ministers that she has indicated that will join you. By show of hand, that drill is the same. You introduce yourself and then...
All right, thanks very much, Molo Kumulota, here from ENCA, Minister. In regard to the developments in the TRC, have you perhaps discussed the possibility of you augmenting the men and women, the boots on the ground there already, either through, yes, more personnel or even equipment, and maybe give us an understanding in terms of the reports that the men and women there who are in service were inadequately resourced. Allegations are that they even ran out of ammunition. If you can just clarify that.
Maybe I can take the second question.
Minister Samkela from the SABC, just a cabinet view. We had a cabinet meeting earlier on the closure of ArcelorMittal's operations in South Africa in Newcastle and also in Pretoria. What's government's position on that? And did the Minister of Finance, meet with the CEO of ArcelorMittal in Davos? Thank you.
Thank you.
Junior Command from Newsroom Africa. In terms of the US withdrawal of aid, you touched briefly on that, but what is South Africa going to do in terms of that? Are you engaging the US government? What is going on there? Thank you.
With regard to the Operation Balloon Body, what has been the reflections, and particularly looking at the Stilfontein crisis, what is the government's reflection on that so far?
The last one.
Minister Lizakatanga from Times Live, just in terms of the DA's threats, Minister, around the budget, has there been discussions between the President and the DA leader as well as have you reflected on the DA's concessions around the NHI?
Thank you very much, Minister.
Thank you. So the question on the DRC by Moluko Moloto, it will be answered by both Minister Mutsaga and Minister Lamula when they do a briefing. They will do immediately after me. Similarly, the question on let me answer the question around the closure of ArcelorMittal. It's not only Minister Kodongwane who met with the CEO of ArcelorMittal, it's also Minister Tau. As things stand, the teams of the DTIC and Finance are meeting, are engaging with AMSA, and they will then update the ministers, and the ministers will then update yourselves on the progress. They are currently in those discussions with them. And then there was a question around the withdrawal of aid funding by the US by Junior. That Minister Motsoaledi will then come and give you the details. They will also follow after me. In terms of Operation Valam Godi, we'll talk to Minister both Kunu and Minister Mantashe to come and brief as you are here, so that you can have the right details from the relevant person. In terms of DA threats with the budget, we are meeting as government of national unity, and we are not bringing party political interests. We are going to negotiate and discuss as members of cabinet and representatives of provinces represented by their premiers, and we work for the best benefit of our country, not the best benefit of our parties. So the engagement are in the level of us being ministers and deputy ministers in the national executive. So the threats of a party, whether it's the DA or the ANC or whoever, they must resolve them at the structures created by their parties to deal with that dispute, in line with the founding statements of the government of national unity that are subjected by the parties. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to bring to you first Minister Mutsaga and Lamula, and we want to make sure, because that's the most current and pressing story. But as cabinet, we extended our condolences to the families, friends, and comrades in arms of the soldiers of South Africa who perished, the soldiers of Tanzania, the soldiers of Malawi, and the soldiers of Uruguay who perished whilst they were in the peacekeeping mission of both SADC and UNESCO, which is the UN mission. And they'll brief you about the engagements that we are currently taking place within SADC. Thank you very much. The ministers will come through.
Thank you, Minister. Colleagues, as the ministers indicated, we are going to be joined now by the Minister of Defense. As the ministers indicated, we are going to be joined by the Minister of Defense, Minister Mutsaga. I see is accompanied by the Deputy Minister, General Olomesa.
Minister, we are allowing him, because he's military with you, we'll then deal with Minister Lamula. We need a third chair so that you can then be able to. A third chair for Minister Lamula, please. Another chair for Minister Lamula. Guys, be nice. Be nice.
At that stage, our priority was to make sure that we go and, even before we came, the first thing we did was to make sure that we go and retrieve the injured in Saki. With the UN, with the support of the UN, we flew in and removed all the deceased and the injured, and they were taken to to Goma. That's why I said I had the opportunity to meet all the injured in Goma. And that's when we lost the 11. So from Goma, we went to MONUSCO, again in Kivu, to really also get a sense of what is happening, because we have your Summit DRC forces, we have the MONUSCO forces. The MONUSCO will be the forces that are led by the United Nations, and the Summit DRC are led by SADC. We also got an update and we left from there. So, soon, maybe, as I said, the idea really was to come and speak to the media. We are ready to give, so because there's still lots of loose pieces, we will give a proper rundown in terms of what happened when, what time. But currently, our position as South Africa, we've been meeting as the troop force contributing countries of Summit DRC, which is us, Tanzania and Malawi, under SADC, to assess the situation. So on a daily basis, we've been meeting. On a 2-hourly basis, we get updates and reports of what is happening. But we also, as I say, we have also UNESCO forces which are under UNESCO. So under the SADC forces, we've been meeting as the Troika. We met the other night, but the general posture that we are taking as a Summit DRC is to force the parties to go into a peaceful negotiation. Because our sense is that that war is not going to be won through arms. It can be only won if people sit down and negotiate. So we have called for a ceasefire. I can assure South Africans that our camps have not been attacked for the past 48 hours because, unfortunately for us, when we were at Goma, your DRC forces were fighting Rwandan forces over our heads. That's where we lost the 3 people. So we had to quickly communicate with M23 to say, we're not part of the battle, so don't fight over our heads. And indeed, that's why then we agreed with them that we'll host a white flag to say, we're not part of the battle, we don't want to be dragged into it. But also, M23 needed a free passage to go to Sagi, to go and collect and retrieve their deceased people. So then we agreed on a ceasefire whereby they will get a free trade, a free passage. We will not fire at their movement, because if they move, we are not sure which direction. So there was a clear ceasefire which was agreed by the generals from M23, but also by our generals. So that process has happened. Even now, as I say, there's never been any attack since the ceasefire that we requested or we instructed from M23. The latest information that I got around 1 o'clock said there's intense fighting in Goma between your M23 and your DRC forces, and the place is completely tense and the difficulties. So that's why we're communicating after every 2 hours to check what the situation is, and that's where we are. But from our side, there's been no activity, there's been no attacks. As a country, we've just say we keep on a 2-hourly basis to check if there's anything that we need to do to improve the situation. But the president also has been in constant contact with the president of the DRC, with the Summit DRC leadership, which is led by the secretary in Botswana. Last night we had an engagement, I think the minister may speak about, with under the leadership of Tanzania, which is leading the process. But we are also speaking to all other forces like Angola, because Angola was responsible for the peace talks. So Angola also is being brought in. There's also discussions which include Rwanda, because it is alleged to be also one of the big perpetrators, and that's why we're keeping communications with them. And they've been friendly. There's been no hostility between us. It's just that at that stage when they were firing above our heads, the president did want them to say, if you're going to fire, we'll take it as a declaration of war, and we'll have to defend our people. And that's when the firing also stopped.
Thank you very much, Minister.
The
appeal I would make is that at least we've got the news directly from the minister. I know the calls that have been made to different us, and that's where the source is. So I'm not sure, maybe Minister, before I take hands of questions, you also indicated the engagement that our Minister of International Relations is also engaged in. Perhaps let's allow also Minister Lamola. Minister, you'll come closer to the mic somehow. To also give us this part so that when we come to the questions, the holistic questions. Thank you very much. Minister.
Thank you very much. As you are aware, since this latest fight, there has been a number of international multilateral organizations meetings. The first being the Peace and Security Council of the African Union that sat yesterday, and its resolutions have been published. As South Africa, we participated in that platform and put our position across, which is a ceasefire, the immediate cessation of hostilities, the withdrawal, the allowance of humanitarian access, and also the support to the civilian population, and also to request all the forces that are supporting M23 to also cease the support immediately. That is the position of the Peace and Security Council, which was also presented yesterday to the United Nations Security Council, which said at 3 p.m. New York time. Same resolution, with also going further in terms of stating that this could also constitute a war crime, because these are peacekeeping forces that are working under the mandate of the United Nations, working under the mandate of SADC, of the AU, of multilateral platforms. And everyone in all these international platforms, there is consensus and agreement that the only way forward, it's a ceasefire, it's a political engagement that President Ramaphosa has always spoken about. From the onset in the DRC process, the President has always said that the solution, it's a political engagement. You will remember he had a working visit of the whole day to Angola late last year with President Lorenzo, briefing each other on the process of the Luanda process in terms of how far it is. And that process was promising that there will be a diplomatic political solution to the challenge in the Eastern DRC. All things fell apart on the 15th of December when both parties were supposed to sign an agreement in regards to the process. You will remember, firstly, there was a ceasefire that was brokered through that Luanda process. On the 15th of December, the warring factions were supposed to have now agreed, signed an agreement. Unfortunately, there could not be consensus, and an agreement was not signed on the 15th of December, which then led to all institutions calling for all the parties to go back to the negotiation table. So it remains important for the peacekeeping forces to be on the ground, to support the work of peace, particularly also to prevent and protect the civilian life in Goma. It's a city with about 2 million people, which the international community has a responsibility to. So that is the current ongoing multilateral platforms aimed to find peace and security in the Eastern DRC. There will be a meeting tomorrow or on Friday, the SADC summit, which will further deliberate on the matter and give a way forward in terms of the decision. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, let's take questions quickly. And let me see where to start. Let me start on my right. The drill is the same. Introduce yourself. So I'll start on my right. I'll come with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let me start with the 5 first. Let me move this way so that the minister hear where the question comes from.
Good day, colleagues. Good day. This one goes to Ubam Polomisa. It's Vikanyo MDN TV. With regard to the expertise that you have in the field, what can you bring to bring South Africans in confidence based on your experience. Thank you, sir.
Samkela from the SABC. Minister and Deputy Minister and Minister Lamula, are the South African troops out of ammunition? What is currently happening when it comes to the issues of resources? Do the South African troops have enough resources to sustain themselves and to keep peace within this particular region of Goma and the DRC? Do they have weapons? Do they have those bullets as well? Thank you. And have you deployed the Air Force to that particular area? I saw you denouncing it on social media. Thank you.
Daniel Tsukwana from Bloomberg News. Ministers, my question is around DRC. First is, are you concerned that a full-blown war could erupt between Rwanda and Congo? What would SA do if that would happen? And another one is, what would be at what point would it be strategic to withdraw South African troops that are there, and what would the implications be for doing that? Thank you.
Afternoon, Ministers. Tabulate at Bloomberg News. Just 2 points of clarity. Minister Lamoda, you mentioned the potential that there are war crimes that are being committed. Can you just give clarity on that? And who are the perpetrators? Would it be M23 rebels and the Rwandan army? Please just give clarity on that. And then, Minister Mutseha, just clarity. You said that the President said that a continued assault on Standard is a declaration of war. Were those words spoken to President Kagame by President Ramaphosa during the call speech? Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Leshwana from Fulvia. To Minister Mutseha, you just touched on the issue of the flag, and I find it conflicting what SNDF said. According to the statement issued by SNDF, they said that when you raise the flag, it's entirely just to alert that there are injuries, and now you're telling us you were caught in between. As a result, it was just to surrender. So which one is exactly the truth of that?
Thank you very much. Colleagues, I'll take another round. I'll start with Tando, go in that side. Maybe let's give the principals the opportunity to respond to the questions that have been raised. Fortunately, the Defense Force communication team is also here. Yeah. I'm not sure we can start with the general.
Okay, expertise. What is my assessment of the situation? We must all remember that the signals that the SANDF is struggling have been issued in the last 10 or 15 years. The defunding of the National Defense Force of South Africa led to us to say the state of readiness for our defense force. We cannot guarantee that we are ready, because you are aware that we're struggling to even maintain the aircrafts, like the helicopters, which normally give cover, aerial cover, to our troops when they are under attack. So in terms of that, we hope that the Department of National Treasury and the Cabinet will rearrange some of the priorities. Remember that the government of South Africa, especially the previous 6 administration, since 1998, they focus more on social security as opposed to military security. And as a result of that, the defunding of the defense force began. But I'm happy that President Cyril Ramaphosa had publicly said, we are going to move away from 0.57% of the GDP to 1.7% of the GDP. That should help our defense force. In terms of what has happened there, it's clear that these troops were let down by our other troops, our neighbors. The troops of Congo surrendered. The troops of Burundi, where they were supposed to cover another flank, they also disappeared. And all of a sudden, these troops of South Africa ended up being attacked by mortars and so on. But I think their reaction, the way they have reacted, they acted with speed, and I also am awaiting for the the UN to come up with statistics as to how many rebels have been shot at in that incident, so as to see that our troops were fighting and effective. Around Thursday, Friday morning, they said they are running out of ammunition and they wanted a reinforcement. The ammunition was sent by Saturday evening. It was in Congo, I mean in eastern in Goma and so on. So in terms of the issues related to us coming back and bringing those troops back now, the situation currently is as follows. Our government is in contact with the United Nations so that they can facilitate the transportation of those people out of Goma and so on.
No, thank you very much. And I just have to also apologize to colleagues because I've been caught up in these meetings last week, so there could be up-to-date information which I've not been able to share with them. But I can assure South Africans that the generals that are there are highly skilled, highly experienced, they are on the ground and capable of leading. And they are not the only leadership that is there. It's us as part of the other forces. So we have, for instance, from MONUSCO, we even have your Bangladesh, we have more than 10 countries for the MONUSCO. So there are generals that are in good supplies there to lead the force. In terms of Summit DRC, our force commander is a South African, his deputy is a Tanzanian, and the third deputy is a Malawian. And they're highly skilled generals. So I just think in terms of because I saw them, I met them, and engaged with them. So I can assure people that there is leadership that is there. In terms of resources, that's why I'm apologizing to police. I say I personally went to Goma, and I got briefing from all the generals. At no stage did they say they have no ammunition. We reinforced on the basis that because there's been this escalated hostilities, then we spoke back home with the meeting that General attended with the National Council of Arms to say it's going to be very important because the situation is very fluid and very problematic. It's going to be important for us to reinforce to make sure that we don't reach a stage where we don't have. But at no stage did any of the generals that I spoke, even the force leader said to me, we've run out of ammunition. No, even Tanzania was reinforcing, and even itself, DRC was reinforcing. But because of the intensity, we felt that to be on the safe side, we need to reinforce because we're not sure how long it's going to last. On the first day, I mean, the commander said that they fought the whole night. And that's why we felt that because we're not armed to go and fight, we're armed there to go and keep peace. And now that we're caught in the crossfire, it's going to be important for us to reinforce. That's why we reinforce. But there was no stage, because I've heard this thing that they ran out of food. And that's why I say at Goma, I went to our logistics center. There was no stage where they said, Minister, we have no food, Minister, no. Personally, none of the generals told me that they've run out. We reinforced because we felt, because of the intensity, it is very risky. On whether we're concerned, it's a big concern. A war, it's one of the ugliest things. So everybody will be concerned. And that's why there's this whole running around. Minister Lamula will tell you, yesterday we met until midnight. The other day we met until 10 to really make sure that we can assist the warring parties to avoid a full-scale war. Because what would have happened at Goma, DRC forces surrendered. Today we're told DRC, so which means that could be a battalion, that could be a group that surrendered. Now they've surrounded Goma, they're fighting M23. So, and that's where there's this a tense situation and their hostilities. And we're getting reports on an ongoing basis that despite the fact that they said they're withdrawing, there's war taking place between the two forces. On the flag, I don't know where I slipped it or where I could have missed it. I said, after talking to M23, it actually wrote to us. to say they need a safe package to go and remove their deceased. On the other hand, ourselves, we just wanted them to understand that we're not part of their battle. We're just peacekeepers. Then we agreed on hoisting a white flag to allow a safe passage for them to remove their deceased, which I'm told it's a conventional practice in war. On the other hand, ourselves needed that safe package to go and deliver some of the resources that we're going to top up at Sagi, and also remove, and at Sagi at that stage, yesterday, there were no deceased on our side, there were no injured on our side. It was to give M23 safe passage, which is their request, and that's why the white flag was hosted. But it was also important for us to indicate from to DRC where the fire were coming, to say, this is us, so if you fire here, you're not firing DRC, you're firing us. So we're not surrendering, because you don't surrender with a flag. I'm told you surrender to, we were supposed, if we're surrendering, we would have gone to UNESCO to say we're giving up. But the white flag was to really allow people safe package to go and collect their deceased and their injured, and also indicate that this is who we are, we're peacekeepers, we're not part of the battle, so they shouldn't fire our direction.
No, thank you very much. Colleagues, the ministers will still have to go back, so let me take the last, I'm taking the last.
So the other question was whether the communication was with President Kagame. It was with the government of Rwanda. So let me put it that broadly, because generals would have been speaking to each other, so it will be an array of people, even the commanders, because we had to speak to the commanders to say, your people are shooting our direction. So commanders also have an open line. They were speaking to the Rwandan commanders, whoever is possible, and it's the generals who are leading those discussions. But the president himself, because what they want to do as leaders is to get all the parties that are alleged, which will be your Rwanda, your Angola, your Tanzania, and all the neighboring countries, to say, let's sit down with these people and help them to resolve this crisis.
Thank you very much. I think, I'm not sure, was there a question directed to Mr. Lamont?
Yeah, no, thank you.
Or the war crimes one,
Yeah, and whether are we worried whether there is a danger of a full-blown regional war? On that one, indeed, we are concerned that a danger exists or a possibility exists of a full-blown regional war. And it is for that reason that all the institutions of the AU and SADC, including East Africa Community, have made, all of them have a resolution of a tripartite engagement of all these institutions, the East Africa, the AU, SADC, a summit on the Eastern DRC. Because as we speak now, already there are forces coming from various groupings and angles. So you do need an intervention that is at the AU level, at the East Africa level, and also at the SADC level, to reach a process of ceasefire, but also of long-term solution. The second one, with regards to the war crime, in terms of the resolution coming out of the UN Security Council, is that these are peacekeeping forces mandated by a Security Council resolution of the United Nations. They are also mandated through the SADC resolutions. So shooting or killing some of them, there are instances where such can constitute war crimes. And that's why the UN Security Council has issued this term warning to all the warring parties, factions that are fighting in the Eastern DRC, to cease to shoot the peacekeepers, but also to cease hostilities against ordinary civilians in the Eastern DRC. Thank you
very much. Colleagues, obviously they have to go back. I have the communications team of the Defense Forces here for any other questions, but I'll just take these two hands before we close. The drill is the same.
All right. Minister Muchecha, my name is Tando Mayeko from the Business Day. Just how long is the temporary truce for, number one? And then do you think that the fall of Goma to the M23 rebels makes ceasefire more difficult than it was before? And then to Minister Lamula, South Africa has basically blamed Rwanda and M23 for the escalation of fighting and basically the death of the South African soldiers. Do you think this sullies the relationship between South Africa and Rwanda further than it is right now?
That's the last one. Yes, Moloko here from ENC. I just want to understand, following this development, whether as South Africa we stay put in that area, and if we do, are we augmenting? Because people have been saying the Gripen has been watched in the airspace of Pretoria yesterday. I just want to understand whether you are augmenting equipment and perhaps more boots on the ground. But I want to come to Minister Lamola at the diplomatic level. The statement by the President at about midday is using a very strong language. If you look at the fact that he describes the M3 as the rebel group, perhaps others will say justifiably so, and then he describes the Rwandan Defense Force as a militia. Now, on the basis of that, and considering that you are worried about these developments as well, the DRC has already severed diplomatic ties with Rwanda. Is it not about time, perhaps, as Pretoria, to follow suit, or even go to an extent of elevating the matter to the ICC?
Colleagues, this is the last round of questions. They have to go back. There are other two ministers that you want, so I'll ask the ministers to be brief so that we need to go back.
No, the fall of Goma complicates issues. It complicates it completely because from the report we got today, fighting has intensified. So they've moved into Goma, and I think we're setting themselves up. Then there was rejection, and that's why they say there's a full scale battle. So it does complicate, especially for civilians, because that they are caught in the crossfire of people who are worried. So it does complicate, and that's why there's an urgency to really try and cap the problem from there. And then maybe I missed the other point, and Minister will relate about. And I did say in my statement to say when we were in Goma with the general, and were told that there was fighting the whole night, we became concerned that the supplies that were there may not be adequate. And that's why we applied to Minister Nchabeni's team to say we do need to urgently reinforce, because now we find ourselves in the crossfire, and to be safe, we then have to make sure that we can protect our people even further. So whatever resources we're saying was to really increase our defense in terms of the intensity of the fighting. But as I say, it's not because we'd run out, but it was a precautionary measure, including the question we were asking about, has it sullied the relationships between Rwanda and ourselves? The first time we got the information was that Rwanda was shooting our direction. When the generals investigated, they found that the shooting came from the DRC from the DRC into Rwanda. Rwanda was defending itself, was retaliating, and that's what then actually changed the complexion and the tension that had arisen, because our view was that because they were shooting a direction, our sense that they were fighting us. But as soon as they clarified that the shots that came to our country came from the direction we're shooting, and unfortunately we're in that direction because DRC was shooting from behind us. So in terms of relationships, the situation is so volatile. I don't think there's time for emotions. You can only deal with things rationally in a way that will ease the situation. So to sully, I'm sure to be very unfortunate if we can find ourselves as government sullied, because people's lives are involved, and what needs to happen, as we say, ceasefire, and ceasefire have a rational approach to matters. Who will decide? Minister would say, he's been explaining that we've been having these meetings on an ongoing basis. That we stay put or we move. I'll ask him to clarify. There's part of your question I forgot.
The truth. How long is the truth?
The truth?
Yeah.
We'll answer separately. We'll answer separately.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. Firstly, we had the duty to participate in the Peace and Security Council of the African Union, and put South Africa's position. with regards to the ongoing dispute. And we put it in line with the UN Charter, with the UN resolutions. And it is for that reason that when you read the outcomes of the PSC, the Security Council, it also speaks about the warring forces that are there, M23, and all the supporting actors to M23 to cease hostilities. This is the same language that the UN Security Council uses, calling all the supporters of M23 to cease the support to M23 and calling for M23 to cease hostilities and all the warring factions in the Eastern DRC. So this is international convention that is happening. The UN Security Council and the PSC can't sit and not discuss what is happening, because the purpose of each sitting was to discuss what is the situation, who is doing what, and what must be the intervention of the Peace and Security Council of the African Union. And that's why it ended up with the outcome that calls for cessation of hostilities by all parties and that support, including the UN Security Council. Including this issue that has been raised, whether we want to look into whether, as I've said, the statement of the Security Council says they must stop it because in certain given circumstances, it could lead to war crimes. It did not say it is war crimes. So obviously it will be a process that may conclude that indeed that is it. But these are peacekeeping forces who have been deployed in terms of the resolutions of the Security Council. And that resolution is also very clear that they can't be attacked by anyone on the ground. And attacking them on the ground can constitute a war crime. At this stage, the South African government has not yet considered that aspect. What we are considering at this stage is the cessation of hostilities. We are putting all our efforts to that, the cessation of fire, and that's why we are participating in all these platforms, including the SADC one that will be sitting soon to further discuss the issue of the cessation of hostilities. It will also discuss the question you are asking. What is the position of the South African government that Minister Mseka says I should answer to, whether to withdraw or what is the situation? That will be discussed at that level of SADC, and when SADC has decided, we will be able to communicate that this is the decision and this is the way forward. It is so because it is not a bilateral agreement between South Africa and the DRC that we can just unilaterally, as South Africa, decide now that we are withdrawing. It must be taken at that multilateral level. As I've said, all these have got stages of SADC, the AU, and the United Nations. We are not on a frolic of our own. We are there on behalf of SADC, on behalf of the AU, and on behalf of the United Nations mandate and Security Council. And we will respect that decision. We will participate. We will make inputs. As I've said, we have been making inputs in all the platforms of the African Union. We have also, you will have also seen our ambassador at the UN Security Council in New York making inputs, because as a troop contributing country, the UN Security Council invited us to give an expert opinion of view or make a submission in terms of the situation on the ground. So we will continue to do that, and when SADC has made a decision, it will be communicated in terms of what is the way forward, what should be done. But South Africa has always maintained that a solution, it's a political engagement, it's diplomatic engagements, it is all the international community putting pressure for a cessation of hostilities in the Eastern DRC. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We'll now call Minister Motsoaledi to deal with the withdrawal of funding. Minister Motsoaledi, come this way.
Siyabonga. Mina ngiyacross. Training recorded Aaron. I mean minister.
Wait. Don't pull.
What is he talking on? Funding.
Yeah, 8 funds.
Oh, damn.
It's fine, I'm recording.
Okay, thank you.
else who's interested on Minister Kun. So, Minister, when I was setting the scene, they had a specific question to say, what does that mean for South Africa that the US has withdrawn aid funding to particular programs? What are the implications for South Africa? And I want you to start there, and then we'll take questions from the media, and it's only going to be 5 questions, so that because you're still going to brief the Lekgotla on the matter.
Yeah, thank you very much, Minister. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen of the media. As you know, in our population of 63 million people, 7.8 million people are infected with HIV and AIDS, of which 5.5 million are on ARVs. Now, where does PEPFAR come in? As you know, we have got 52 districts in South Africa. PEPFAR chose 27 of the most affected districts. That's where they are, meaning in the other districts, they are not there. They are only in 27. And these 27 districts are only in 8 provinces. As I said, they are choosing in terms of the load, the burden of HIV/AIDS. So the only province that's not there is Northern Cape, because it does not have any district that is highly affected by HIV/AIDS. Not that there's no HIV/AIDS there, but they gauge. Now, in the districts, the 27 districts, 7 of them are in KZN. For very obvious reasons, we know KZN is highly affected. 5 of them are in Eastern Cape. 4 of them are in Gauteng, and 3 in Mpumalanga, 3 in Northwest, 2 in Limpopo, and in Western Cape is only the Cape Metro that is in that group. So it's a total of 27, and obviously the 0 is Northern Cape. Now, the total number of people on the ground who are dealing with HIV/AIDS in those 27 districts, the total number of people is 271,000 people, 271,606 to be exact. Those are the people on the ground every day who are fighting HIV and AIDS. Now, out of that number, 256,452 are funded by us as South Africa. And I want to repeat the numbers because it's very important to understand. We have got an army of 271,000 people, 606, on the ground in the 27 districts fighting HIV and AIDS. 256,452 are funded by us as South Africa from our own fiscus. That leaves us with 15,145 people. Those are the ones who will be affected by whatever withdrawal is there. Now, how is the funding conducted? 76% of the funding is from South Africa. 76% of the funding. 74% by the government, fiscus, and 2% by the private sector. That includes medical aid. All the medical aids in the country are contributing 2% to the fight against HIV/AIDS. Otherwise, the rest is government. Now, obviously, as you can see, that leaves us with a gap. And that gap is filled by Global Fund, which gives 7%, and PEPFAR, which gives 17%. So when you add Global Fund and the government of South Africa, or the South African, either government and private sector, when you add them, you realize that is 83%. So PEPFAR remain with the 17%. That's where our problems are. Now, we are buying ARVs on our own with 10% from Global Fund, which is not affected by this. I'm sure you are aware. Global Fund is an international organization in Geneva. We are buying on our own. So our biggest problem will be the salaries and the operational costs of those people that I've just mentioned. That's what we are trying to look at with Treasury. We were supposed to have a meeting yesterday, which could not happen because they were preparing for this Lekgotla, as you understand. Lekgotla is mostly a Treasury thing. But they said we must write a dossier and send it to them. We have just finished that dossier. We have sent it to them, showing some of these things that I'm actually telling you about here. But up to so far, we haven't received any letter from the American government. This money, whether from Global Fund or PEPFAR, it comes through Treasury. Treasury has got no letter. Health has got no letter. DERCO has got no letter. Tried to conduct the embassy of the US. We couldn't get them. So how do we know that there is this funding withdrawal and all that? Because the actual NGOs and the clinics that are funded from this PEPFAR were the ones who received letters, as you know. But this morning, we read again that the Secretary of State has withdrawn that for the time being because they say they are going to review for 90 days. So it's still a little bit fluid as to exactly which way are we going. But we believe for now, all programs continue. As South African government, one thing we want to ascertain is that nobody must stop taking ARVs, because that will be devastating. It will be completely dangerous. As you know what happened. When you are on ARVs and you stop, there will be serious trouble. Now, where are we in the battle? I'm sure many of you know that in 2014, UNAIDS adopted the strategy of 95-95-95. That of all the people who are HIV positive, 95% of them must know their status. And out of those who know their status, 95% must be on ARVs. And out of those who are ARVs, 95% must be virally suppressed so that they stop propagating the virus. So where are we? We are on 96, 79, 94. That means 96 of the people who are HIV positive, at least in our country, they know their status. But those who are on treatment, out of those who know their status, are 79%. And in that 79% who are on ARVs, 94% of them are virally suppressed. It means they can no longer spread the virus, reducing the number of new infections. So for us to reach this 95-95-95, which we are targeting to do by 2030, because we want to eliminate HIV as a threat to human health by 2030. So in order to do that, our calculation is that we need 1.1 million people. As you can see from the 95, the middle 95 is the one where we are very weak. That means the number of people who are on ARVs. So to reach that 95, we need 1.1 million people. On the 23rd, I think we are launching that program. We had a meeting here with the ambassador of PEPFAR, John Kingaso, UNAIDS, UNICEF. We had a meeting last year to plan for this. which we call Accelerator 2. So we are still going on with it because we want those 1.1 million people to be on ARV so that we reach our 95s. We obviously will be affected by this, but what we want to guarantee is that we don't want to find any single South African who is on ARVs, stopping them because of this decision from America. That will try by all means to stop, and we are lucky because, as I told you, the ARVs we are buying is from our own fiscus and from Global Fund, 10%. The rest, 90% is ours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. We'll take then the questions. Can I see a show of hands? You introduce yourself, the media house you come from, and then you say your question. Can I see? Going once? Moloko. I forgot. Anastasia. Nelly. Let's go in that order. So it's 4.
Minister Sembile from Bloomberg News, what is the budget implication for those 17,000 salaries and operational costs? What would you be needing from the Treasury?
17,000?
17%.
Sorry, 17%. You said for the operational costs and the salaries. If we are to fill in that gap, how
it's
much?
4.6 billion.
Thank you.
Moloko?
All right, yeah, mine is very simple. Just to understand, as much as you are saying, large part of the budget in regard to this HIV program comes from our own sources. But even with the tiny withdrawal, should the US continue not to fund us, how much of a setback will this be on the fight against the HIV?
It is, of course, a setback if people stop talking their ARVs about that. But as I said, we've already had meetings with people who are officials who are running HIV and AIDS in provinces. We have had a few meetings with people living with HIV and AIDS as one of the 18 sectors of SANAC. We are discussing strategies. So it will be a setback if one person doesn't take ARVs because of this. The other setbacks, we'll try how to deal with it, like I've already spoken about salaries. The 17% of PEPFAR is about 7 billion, you know. Or maybe I didn't give you the total amount which we are spending on this program of HIV. Those who were at Lituli House yesterday, I said it's 44.4 billion. I'm sorry, I'm apologizing. They gave me last year's figure. Now it's 46.8. It's 46.8 billion for now, and for the next financial year it's going to be 48 billion. I'm apologizing. Whoever gave me the figures gave me last for 23-24 financial year. Now I'm talking about 24-25. It's 46.8 billion. Now in that 46.8 billion, 17% of that comes from PEPFAR. The rest is us, as I've said, and Global Fund.
Madam Anastasia.
Anastasia Mkhobu for Jacaranda FM News. Minister, understanding that the review is going to take 90 days, which means there's still time to have conversations with other people, are there perhaps, outside of National Treasury, are there perhaps other NGOs that the government can approach to fund those clinics that are going to continue with the work? I know that vets did indicate that they're going to be closing the clinic, and Men's Health in Joburg as well.
Look, there are many funders around the world, but the issue with funders is they choose a particular program. For instance, in health, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation are also stars in that area, but it's only that they never entered this area. Most of our vaccines and research, and even now the TB vaccine research that is going on, which is likely to produce very positive results in 2027, is funded by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So I'm just giving that as an example. We have got many other funders around the world. The question is, will they agree to enter this? For instance, Global Fund was specifically formed in Geneva for HIV, AIDS, TB, and malaria only. That's all they are doing. But you remember that during COVID, they agreed to fund us for oxygen, what you call that controversial program, which is still being investigated. It was a deviation from what they usually do. So we don't know whether when we speak to these funders and say, please deviate from this to HIV/AIDS, it's still very early days to tell. But at the moment, HIV is funded by PEPFAR and Global Fund.
Thank you, Minister.
Hi, Minister. I'm Nellie Payton from Reuters. You said that you don't want anyone to go off their ARVs, of course, but I'm just wondering, what is the risk of that in this interim term while the government is trying to find other sources of funding to make up the gap? In the next weeks, for example, are there people who could conceivably not be able to get their medication or not get follow-up services?
Well, I said when we met people who are running these provinces, we are trying to avoid that. If you look at the clinics run by vets, they've already called people to come and fetch their ARVs, waiting for these 90 days to give them all the supply. So, as I am saying, what we want to guard against is anybody not taking ARVs. And we think, I mean, I've already given you the staff that is on the ground. That is 271,000 people. And 256,452, they'll still be there because they are paid by our government. Maybe they'll just do more work, but 256,000 are there. The ones that may be affected if they have to stop is that 15,100 in those 27 districts. But remember, there are other districts in South Africa. We are not counting them here because PEPFAR is not involved. Those districts will be giving ARVs. They'll still be employing people. They'll still be doing everything that needs to be done.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, colleagues. I need an indication. Do you still need Minister Mkhunu?
Yes.
Last question.
Just one question.
No. We agreed to raise hands. All of us, we didn't raise. Minister, you need to go brief the
I'm very generous.
No, let's go, Minister. And well, Minister Mkhunu is going to come. You'll get a body break when Minister Mkhunu comes. We're going to evaluate it. So the primary question is that was everybody who was stuck, the illegal miners who had stuck themselves in the Stilfontein mine, were they all rescued or there's still another rescue effort? And also in general, we are dealing with only one mine. What are the government plans for the rest of the mines? So if you can start from there, then we can take only 4 or 5 questions, and then we will release you back into the Lekgotla. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you very much. About a week ago, we held as a cluster, Justice and Intelligence and ourselves, SAPS, we held a meeting and we invited the DMR, and the purpose of the meeting was to hear a closeout report on Stilfontein as the epicenter of illegal mining in South Africa, as it were. That report shows that everything has been done to the best of everyone's ability in terms of those who are involved in cleaning out. We were left with a situation of the service provider having to write out a closing report and sign it off. Police also do the same, and all the other people who are involved. But we satisfied ourselves that everything has been done, as I say, to the best of our ability. You'll recall operations lasted for about 2 days, where we had thought that it would last for 16 days, but we announced 10 days. But they did far less than that. And we said, even though we are satisfied that this was 3 o'clock or so, that no one is coming out anymore, but go there tomorrow, be there, satisfy yourselves that you have called out everybody, including the people that would be sent down, carry messages the way they were carrying. So everything has been done, humanly speaking, both in shaft 11 and shaft 10. The other thing that I need to say is that there was a man from there, I think he's a Sanko person, who on the second day of operations made a statement on TV that what has been seen, people coming out dead or alive, is picnic. What is lying ahead in terms of shaft 10, we are going to see mass murders, how far mass murder has gone in that shaft and so on. But come the time, there was nothing. I interpreted that as a speculation, maybe a wish that more dead people be found in shaft 10, and as it turned out, nothing of that nature ever happened. And so, as far as we are concerned, it's now a done job. What needs to be done now, the responsibility has shifted in Stilfontein to the mine owner, and with assistance from Minerals Council, but all of it under DMR, to seal that those shafts, particularly shaft 11. But I don't think they will deal with shaft 11 only. They need to deal with all other shafts that may still pose a problem. Now, in terms of the way forward, we took a resolution there, assisted by net joints, that we have to intensify the ban on illegal mining in the country. There are many reasons for that. One of the reasons cited by the Minister of Minerals, Resources and Petroleum was that it now comes at a cost, illegal mining comes at a cost of no less than 60 billion rand per annum, just illegal mining. But there's also the other aspect of criminality. Where does whatever they get from underground, where does it go immediately it reaches surface? Those who pick up what those who mine, where do they take it to? Because they remain there. They don't go out. it means that the second layer takes from the first layer from underground, give it to the third layer, and ultimately it goes somewhere for refinement and all of that. But we're interested in that value chain, so we're intensifying that investigation on those who could be termed as sophisticated, those who are in hiding, and those who are operating even from outside the country, so that we get the whole of this value chain. So we will come up with that. Investigations are underway by DPCI and other agencies. But we're interested also, as we said, we're interested in the 10 companies that were there assisting in whatever way they were assisting. Some of them have found their objectives. They say their objectives is to assist communities around illegal mining activities, empower them and all of that. But they do that outside government. They have never spoken to us. We're here when we pick up documents here and there, and that is worrying us. Because some of them are from overseas. Now, they follow the companies that mined during the colonial era and during the apartheid era. And now we have the third layer of companies that come from overseas. To do things as they want and so on, we will look for a meeting with them, sit down with them. What are your activities? What are your objectives? You'll recall we were taken to court about 5 times. And we don't believe that people from around there had all the money to do that. So they were aided by these 10 companies without declaring. All of us who are there, including us as government, we declared everything that we're doing. When there's a body coming from underground, we declare it. When there's somebody who is sick for something, we declare, take to hospital. Those who were arrested, those who were taken to their own countries, we declared everything. There's not a single thing that we hid, that we hid behind, including questions, delicate questions of balancing rule of law and human rights. We were overboard. We were, transparent on that. Now, we don't want anybody to then work underground in a delicate situation like that and so on. So what is the way forward? The way forward is to intensify the ban on illegal mining. We will be led by Department of Minerals and Petroleum. They've done some work and they are proceeding. We just have to intensify. We will follow them, assisting in terms of law enforcement, where law enforcement is called upon to act. Of course, having learned some lessons from Stilfontein. I'll rest it there.
Thank you. May I take hands? We'll start here and then 3. Where's the original? Yeah. Okay, 4. So these 4 hands. Going once, twice, gone. Okay.
Thank you, Minister. Peter News. Minister, well done. More than 1,500 illegal miners were arrested, and only 29, or less than 30, were South Africans. What's the plan from the security cluster with regard to the borders, meaning that the illegals are coming here, but also, Minister, those who've been arrested are the illegal miners, poor people illegally mining. Where are the kingpins, Minister, the ringleaders? Thank you, Minister.
Madam Anastasia.
Anastasia Mukoglu, Jaganda Feminist. Minister, there's been calls from communities around Gauteng where there was an incident of rape by mine workers the previous day, for a similar operation to happen in the area. Is there perhaps an appetite to move, to intensify the same way that it happened in Stilfontein, around Gauteng and in other extended communities?
Thank you, Minister. I'm Hawelo Magolego from UFM. On the aftermath of the rescue there, we saw a picture of a man being circulated on social media with confirmation from police that is believed to be some kind of a kingpin who was not booked into the cells with everyone else, and apparently, as based on the admission of the leadership of the police in the Northwest, aided by the SAP's own officers. And previously there were allegations that SAP's vans were being used to move equipment for these illegal miners. Just any comment on that, the involvement of law enforcement officers in this crime? And when you get to court, exactly what do these people get charged with other than being in the country illegally? How difficult is it to convict them, rather?
Last question.
Francis Loamacha, the Progressive Independent of Radio TV. Minister, having received reports on this issue of illegal mining, how much of a problem countrywide is this problem, statistically so? And looking at Stilfontein, as government, do you regret the decisions that you took? And if you are given an opportunity to deal with Stilfontein again, are you going to deal with it differently? Thank you.
Over to you, Minister.
Thank you very much. Let me start with the appetite to deal with other open mines or other illegal or mines being operated on illegally. We have already said the way forward, as we see it, is to intensify our resolve to close all illegal mining in the country for various reasons. I counted only 60 billion in terms of the cost to the South African economy by this kind of illicit economy. But there are others. There is danger of people mining illegally without any guidance because there are residential areas on top. There are other people with other activities posing danger in that way. It even affects pillars underground that are no longer being maintained, and they could be moved sideways, posing danger to the surface. But these people come with a lot of other things that break the law, like stealing from the community around. There were reports there of cattle disappearing. There were also the issues of young children who are underage getting involved there. Many others interfering with electricity infrastructure and all of that. And so, therefore, the way forward, there is appetite, more than appetite. We need to close illegal mining in the country. And it's like all other countries elsewhere in the continent. Now, your question was
the involvement of the police.
The involvement of the police.
And the severity of the offense in court.
Yeah, we've made, I think even through the National Commissioner and the Provincial Acting Commissioner, that it is clear beyond any doubt that there was an officer or officers who assisted the kingpin. But about the kingpin, this thing of the kingpin illustrates beyond any doubt that there was somebody who was resisting the call of government for the illegal miners to come out. And whatever went down, water or food in whatever form, it would be usurped by those people because he was not alone, and even sold. It means that if you didn't have money, you wouldn't be able to drink water down there, or you wouldn't eat whatever. And so the question, who is responsible for the killings of the 78 illegal miners there, it's a question that needs to be asked very, with a lot of caution. So there is definitely a police officer or officers who aided the so-called kingpin. And it must be found, and there must be a consequence for that, and police are looking for him. And then your question is, I didn't write down, the summary of your question was, what do you do with those who get arrested? And they are processed by justice, and they are charged for being illegally in South Africa. But if there's any other thing, like some of them come out with some of the pieces of material that is called bearing, or any other mineral bearing. That is illegal to be in possession of that. Some even swallowed it, but some had it in pockets and all of that. There's one who was said to have swallowed it, but others, they had it in pockets. So it depended on the case, and they would be charged accordingly. I can't remember which other questions. Kingpin.
Where are the kingpins?
Yeah, the kingpins. I dealt with that question right at the beginning to say, it is clear that whatever is mined by illegal miners, they are not the movers. They are moved. Theirs is to stay there. You heard them saying they've been there 6 months, 4 months without coming out and so on. Now, it's clear that some of the people, for instance, who were saying were community, were aiding and so on, they are most likely to be the ones who are in the second layer, who receive from those who are underground. We're interested in those people. We're investigating. Secondly, we said there are those, even those who receive from those who are underground, they are faces from around, which means that they are not also the movers. They are moved. They take from those who are underground, and then they give it to some real kingpins who are either in the country or outside the country. There could be 3 or 4 layers of people if you count the ones who refine elsewhere. We have some clues. Police have some clues that they are following. They will arrest. They will go to the bottom of this, definitely.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Minister, for your time, and we really appreciate your coming through.
They say there's one.
Which was the one?
The question on how much of the problem is this countrywide.
But he has explained it. He said.
I asked for statistics as well.
No. It's really unfair on the minister
and
to.
The last was, if government is given an opportunity to do still again, will government do it differently?
Is the only question that the minister is going to deal with is the plus part of the Stilfontein, what are the lessons? But statistics, it's really unfair to ask the minister to provide statistics. Thank you. Minister, over to you.
There's going to be more time of reflection on this matter. You take it to yourself as an individual. When you're on a plane, it doesn't land in the same way all the time. Some pilots would land a little bit roughly, and others and so on. When you ask them, they will tell you you learn, or on each landing, you want to learn better. Each time so it's common cause that having gone through Stilfontein, we will go to other operations better equipped by what we would have learned there, and use those lessons to handle those situations that would pose. So that question is common cause. It's our daily experience that we want to do better all the time, and we would want to, both in terms of time and other efficiencies and so on.
Thank you, Minister, for your time. Members of the press, thank you for your time. Minister, you are duly released.
Thank you.